I have another story about my home country, Germany. So in Germany, the onshore wind capacity increase has been somewhat stagnating in the first half of 2019. So only 287 megawatts of capacity and a total of 86 new turbines have been added in the first half of the year, which is the lowest level since the year 2000 when the energy transition policy was implemented into law. And so the net capacity after, decreases from decommissioned wind turbines is even lower than that. And so the main reason cited for the sort of decrease in capacity growth has been increasing resistance to new wind projects in the general population and also increasing regulations like minimum distance setbacks from residential areas. And so I found this interesting because right now we're supposed to be in a time of peak installation of wind and solar capacity. So the government is, having favorable conditions and guaranteed profits for the renewable energy capacity. And so allegedly wind and solar decrease in price all the time, and that's true for the solar cells and the wind turbines themselves. But as we've discussed in previous power hours, of course, the system cost that these technologies impose on the power grid increase with their share of generation for several reasons, but mainly the intermittency problem. And so we are seeing now a stagnation because of the regulations and the resistance against these projects already at a relatively low share in Germany. So something like 30 to 35% of power generation comes from solar and wind combined now, which is a lot, but it's not even the level of Denmark, which produces over 40% or generates over 40% of its electricity from wind alone. And we already see a stagnation. And this is interesting, in particular because in the near future, people fear a recession or at least a strong economic slowdown in Central Europe and Germany specifically. So the car manufacturers have already built a very low amount of cars, similar to the 2008 financial crisis period. And so I regard this as another sign of the actual failure of energy transition policies. So the power prices, as we've discussed before many times, went up instead of declining when solar and wind were added since 2000, massively so. The emission goals, as timid as they are in Germany right now, will not be achieved very likely. So this will be all pain, all economic pain, no gain in sort of CO2 emission reductions. And the renewable energy industry, after decades of subsidies and favorable conditions, is unable to grow sufficiently itself without massive government intervention and favors. And so I only see one possible way to achieve these emission reduction goals, and this is curtailing energy demand, which is making Germans poor. So the government has decided we will force these technologies on the population, and they don't work. They don't reduce emissions sufficiently, and they cannot grow exponentially as would be needed to catch up with fossil fuels. And so that's a very, very bad outlook, especially considering that by the end of 2022, the remaining 7 nuclear units will go offline in Germany by law. And solar and wind cannot even close that gap. And then, end of the 2030s, if that will still be the plan by then, and I hope not, the coal capacity will be completely shut down. So I don't see how solar and wind in Germany will even fill the gaps, let alone allow for some energy demand growth there. So this is a real catastrophe for an industrialized country. And, again, it's all pain, but no real substantial gain.
So what are you going to do about this? Are you going to flee Germany?
I hope I'm not alone in my fight by then, because I think the early 2020s will be a crucial political time. I think so. I don't know. Maybe I will run for chancellor, or have my own party running. We'll do something about it. We will try. We'll try to fight. And if everything falls apart, then I hope on the other side of the Atlantic you will have your immigration policies updated.
Yeah, we should really, this shouldn't actually be the policy, but I was just thinking, it should, if people wrote a letter, condemning the anti-energy policies of their native country, it should go to the front of the line in terms of you're a real American. I mean, my view about how a lot of this stuff is going to happen is I think that certain countries will be suckers and they'll really hurt themselves. And then at a certain point, the fad will be over. And then other countries won't hurt themselves. And with the U.S., it's scary to think about, because definitely there are plenty of problems with the Republicans, so that's no panacea at all. But with the Democrats, you just have these completely of the ultimate, what I'm calling sucker policies, in terms of just let us outlaw a huge amount of the energy sources that actually are making us prosperous, and then let's just mandate things that don't work at all. And you're seeing, do much, much more than Germany. So to do that many times over and expect a different result. And then so if we do that, then you get a really bad result. And then the question is, and with a lot of those things, you can just undercut yourself hugely in the long term. Now, I think that once enough countries do it, then there will just be and there will be clearly, even more clearly, I think, certain countries who just don't follow these commitments because they're so clearly destructive, and then certain ones that do, and then they're suffering mightily. So I would like to prevent everyone from doing it, but I'm particularly concerned about the U.S. and us being positioned to be the sucker on energy. For many reasons, it's worst from my perspective for us to be the sucker. One is that I'm here, but another is just we're the place with proper mineral rights. So we're a place where you can really innovate in terms of things happening underground. So forbidding, you can imagine, like with fracking, forbidding it in France is one thing, but forbidding in the US, that just stops innovation that will ultimately positively affect everyone around the globe.